welcome to the 169th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And instead of just a quick screen across the Harpeth River, he is a Hail Mary away from me in the metro Atlanta area. It's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
Well, a couple things. We could have used a couple of Hail Marys on Saturday for the dogs. And I've got some allergies as a result of this weather changing. So bear with me. I'm also on mobile, so I'm not as my usual clear-sounding self. So, but yeah, excited for another show.
All right. Well, we can't get started without the third amigo in the second city, a man who became intimately acquainted with Interstate 65 this past weekend. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
And I am also in the Atlanta Metroplex. Coach and I are having quite the weekend together. Matt, we just didn't feel the need to invite you. I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh, I wish you would have told me. Josh, you could have just kept going down 65. You end up right here in Nashville.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So, anyway, we have so many good games from this weekend, and we're going to try to get to all of them. Don't know if we can, but we'll do our best. Let's start with a quick recap of our spread formations where we pick against the spreads from last week. Not as bad as some weeks have been this year. We've had a pretty rough season coming into the week. I was sitting about 500, both of you guys. A little short of that. This weekend, however, Josh was the best of us. He finished at 4-2. He and Coach were both on the correct side of Florida at Vanderbilt. That was a very lucky cover. Should have been a push. Florida kicks an extra field goal with like 30 seconds left. I was at the game. And I made a interesting observation. Josh, have you ever been to a game where one of the teams is the Florida Gators?
No, I have not.
Josh, who are the worst fans in the Big Ten?
Ooh. Personally, I would go with Michigan State just because I've seen them firsthand boo injuries in a time where it was not trying to get a team out of a tempo offense. It was just to be jerks. So is that where you were going?
Yeah, Florida fans are the worst, man.
I can concur that.
Well, Coach, I was your bias in that one, but Florida fans, man, I'm sorry, I was not.
I am biased because I've experienced it firsthand, like 8 years down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, the Gator bait chant.
I've got plenty.
Get over yourself.
I've got plenty of sample size on this one.
That is an absolutely garbage chant.
Yes, it is.
So,
and some Florida fans came into the restaurant I was eating at on Friday, and they were totally obnoxious.
Yeah, and then, there was basically as close to you'll get as a fight between head coaches as you'll see in this one. And Florida fans were trying to take on Vanderbilt fans who were just there for homecoming. That's kind of ballsy of Vanderbilt to schedule Florida as their homecoming opponent. But maybe that's just out of necessity. But anyway.
And who would have thought that Todd Grantham would be in the middle of another coach's brawl?
Well, sorry, one more thing from that game. Keyshawn Vaughn had 130 total yards in the first quarter, then get injured out the rest of the game. If he stays in that game, there is not a chance that Vanderbilt loses that game. He was no one could tackle him, and he went out with injury, and that really changed the game. Anyhow, bad end of the spread there for me and Jens, our guest picker from last week. Josh was also the only one who correctly backed Air Force. We all had Texas A&M covering the 2 on the road at South Carolina, barely covered. It was a 3-point game there. We were all on Colorado last week. USC showed up and won by 11. And we were all on the correct side of that lovely 25.5-point spread. Maryland had at home against Rutgers. So for the week, Josh 4-2, Coach, you were 3-3. Me and our guest picker Jens were both 2-4. So
hey, I'm back to 500 for a week.
Not quite. For the week, yes. For the season, no. Coach, you are
I got a long way to go.
13, 24, and 1. Josh, you are 15, 22, and 1. I am 17, 20, and 1.
Oof.
So not our best, but we are steadily approaching 500.
We're chipping away at it.
As a group.
Just keep putting Rutgers games in there. Those are the easiest to pick.
I know. So, and we're going to do something different today, folks. If you follow college football at all, you know that both Georgia and Wisconsin had pretty disheartening losses. So we're going to talk about both those games pretty much at the top. But first, Josh, I want to hear the good news before we have to deal with the bad. So tell me about your trip to Bloomington.
Well, if we're going to talk about good news, then I'm not going to bring up Rutgers' passing attack, which had more completions to Maryland than to their own team. But yeah, the trip to Bloomington, really fun. We did not fully know what to expect. We had never been down there, and honestly, we didn't know very many Iowa fans that had been either, especially since the divisions have now gone east-west and we don't play Indiana as often as we used to. So it was kind of an unknown quantity. The town was 80,000, which is, moderately sized town. That's pretty good for a college town. But it felt way smaller because it had the great town square set up around the courthouse right there. We had an amazing dinner in the town square Saturday night. Shout out to the Malibu Grill. They know how to cook some really good meat and fish. So if you're looking for a rec in Bloomington, that's a good one. Campus beautiful. Stadium complex really set up nicely. Football, basketball, the other athletics, all kind of in a general vicinity of each other with ample parking for all that. So that was the great stuff. The stadium was really nice. They've put a lot of renovations into it, and I think it's been money well spent. It looks like a Big Ten stadium, something that you couldn't have said 15 years ago about Memorial Stadium. At their stadium cups, you can buy a souvenir one that you can get refilled unlimited times during the game, or you can buy a huge jug for $35 that you could get refilled throughout the rest of the season.
Ooh. So is it for season or for life?
Just for the season.
Okay, so it's a different jug every year.
Correct.
So if you were a real diehard Indiana fan, I feel like you'd have one of those jugs from every season.
Oh, yeah. When you think about it, a soda at most stadiums is like $8. This one's $35. You refill it, you bring in some Dixie cups into the stadium, and you just share sodas with the rest of your family. It pays for itself. So those were the highlights. And the low light, though, and this is really disappointing because the Indiana fans we talked to and met, really, really nice, really, really knowledgeable, and some really, really passionate. There was a guy in our row that was just losing it every time Indiana made a mistake. And the problem is those fans are few and far between. And so as a result, it was the least filled stadium for a homecoming game I've been to. It was the least filled stadium I've ever been to, period, which is too bad. And I know that any Indiana fan that's listening to this is obviously a diehard college football fan, and they're not the issue with the fan base. So I want to challenge any Indiana fans that do listen to us to drag some of their friends with them, because I know there are people watching the game from the comfort of their own home that are watching it from a bar, and they are then going to complain about, oh, Indiana's bad, Indiana football's a joke. You got to change that outlook and show up for games, because that's how you get a better pool of coaches, and Iowa is the perfect example. Hayden Fry saw Iowa in the middle of the 70s when they were god-awful and the stadium was sold out and they were going bananas for first downs. And he thought to himself, if that fan base is that passionate for a loser team and they cheer that loudly for first downs, what in the world is going to happen if they ever start winning games and they start scoring? And it was based on that passion. Now, I know it also comes down to paycheck, but the paycheck is not going to matter for an up-and-comer if they see an empty stadium. And I think Matt Campbell, who we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, is another good example. I've talked about it before. Cyclone fans show out. I've never been to Ames without it being sold out. And that is a program that's not much better than Indiana. And you could maybe even make an argument that they're in a little bit worse of a situation than Indiana because the Big 12 doesn't have as much prestige nowadays as the Big 10. So I want Indiana to succeed because I had such a fun time. And with them not in Iowa's division, it's fine with me if they start making Big 10 title games. But I don't see them ever – it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they can't even show up on homecoming, and we met fans in our hotel that were there for festivities, weren't even going to the game. You gotta change that. So Bloomington, though, to sum it all up, my parents and I agreed we have no problem going back there each and every time Iowa plays at Bloomington. We had one hell of a time, Matt.
Well, my dad's sister actually just moved back to Bloomington. She went to Indiana in the 70s and then moved back to Maine, where my dad's family's from, and just moved back to Bloomington last year and is happier than ever. So, and she raves about the place. I've only heard wonderful things. I would love to go down for Little Five sometime. I don't know, though, if in my old age I can keep up anymore. But anyway.
It was basically the total polar opposite of Nebraska.
Wonderful. See, I thought you were going to, when I asked you earlier, when I prompted you about the worst Big Ten fans, I thought you were going to say Nebraska. Because that's who I would equate Florida fans with.
No. Nebraska fans are very nice. They're very passionate.
Okay.
I just don't like their town. But talking to them football to football, they're fine.
Okay.
There's a segment of that fan base that, is stuck in the 90s and think Tom Osborne is going to descend from wherever and start coaching them again. And they can be a little annoying. But for the most part, Nebraska fans are highly knowledgeable and very, very nice. I just don't like the town.
Got it. I'm glad we've clarified that.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. You and I had a rough weekend.
Yeah.
This was not good.
Mm-mm.
You guys lost.
No.
Dogs lost by 20 in Baton Rouge. Badgers lose by 25 in Ann Arbor. And good Lord, nothing. I don't want to say nothing went right for the teams, but it was poor performances on both sides. Coach, I mean, where do you want to begin with the Dogs?
Let's see. How about abandoning the run game when you're averaging 6-7 yards per carry? We'll start there. How about not having an identity at all? How about that horrid fake field goal? Like, why are you doing something that reeks of desperation on your second series of the game when you actually haven't been playing poorly up until that point? You've been playing pretty well up to that point. You just crammed it down their throat with, 7 straight runs to get you, 68 yards, I think. You had 4th and 9 with a chip shot field goal. Take the points on the road. Let's see. Jake Fromm was 2 of his first 11. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Couldn't hit water from a boat. Whatever one of those sayings you want to use. But he sucked. How about the 5-star quarterback you have sitting on the bench that you keep telling everybody that you're going to play and give a legitimate shot to, only to see him come in as a gimmick wildcat glorified running back quarterback and go in for a play and then come out and not really get a real shot to play quarterback. Let's see. I don't know. the 475 yards of total offense given up to LSU. Not adjusting. Inside linebackers might as well have just been sitting on the sidelines because they were non-existent anyway. Let's see, what else? Number 3, Tyson Campbell. I get it. He's very talented. He's a freshman. He's been baptized. He got picked on all game long. And they kept hitting deep ball after deep ball after deep ball. And he blew a coverage because he looked at the safety and said, hey, I've never corner fired. Let me just go ahead and halfway corner fire and give up a 60-yard bomb on the guy that I should have been covering or the zone that I should have been covering. So in conclusion, the Dogs were thoroughly outcoached, outmanned, out everything. It probably falls more under coaching because I don't feel like there was any adjustments made. Georgia's a pretty talented team. Georgia's more talented on paper than LSU, but they sure as heck didn't play like it. And it's like being down 16-0 usually doesn't make me wonder, or make me have that type of feeling. But that 16-point lead felt like a 46-point lead. And it felt so insurmountable because we've been playing so poorly. We could do nothing right. I forgot. 3rd and 6. We're down by 10 at this point. Like, we've actually rallied at this point. We actually did something right for once. We put in Justin Fields. He ran 3 plays of zone read. Elijah Holyfield carries the entire LSU defense on his back into the end zone. Touchdown. It's 19-10. We get the ball. Mecole Hardman has a great punt return. We got 1st and 10 from the plus 38. What do? 3 straight passes. Jake Fromm takes a 9-yard sack. We're out of field goal range. Dagger.
Yeah, it was a rough one. And Coach, you and I had been texting, and something that I mentioned that I thought this was for Wisconsin. I think there's a lot of parallels actually between these. For Wisconsin, I thought this was probably the worst coach game since Paul Chryst became the head coach at Wisconsin. I kind of, Josh, I'm going to hijack questionable coaching, or maybe you can help me out with it because I know you were watching this game as well. So my first question, Coach,
all right.
Do you think Jonathan Taylor is a good running back?
He's one of the best in the country.
Okay. How many times it's 17-13 game, or a 17-6 game at halftime. How many times do you think he should touch the ball in the second half?
17-16?
In the second half it's 13-7 at halftime.
13-7 at halftime. I don't know.
Both defenses playing well.
Both defenses playing well. Well, I think he should still touch the ball at least another 10 to 13 times.
Yeah, you at
minimum.
You would think. Yeah, right? he touched it 6 times in the second half.
Oh God!
This is after averaging more than 6.5 yards a carry in the first half.
Wow.
So that's questionable coaching number 1. Questionable coaching number 2. You have the score is now 21-7 Michigan. You have 4th and 2 at Michigan's 42-yard line. There are 2 minutes and 25 seconds remaining in the third quarter. So down by 2 scores.
Down by 2 scores.
So it's 4th and 2. What are you doing?
I'm going for it. It's 4 down territory.
So you would question the punt that ended up being a touchback for a net of 22 yards.
Yeah, I mean, you're down 2 scores at midfield in the fourth quarter. Hell yeah, it's 4th down territory.
Or
4 down territory.
So now it's the fourth quarter. You've just given Michigan has just gone down and scored a field goal. So now you are down 24-7. To this point, your starting quarterback stats are 3 for 14 for 30 yards. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Are you benching him? Are you going to stick with him?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tougher one because I don't know if that's a fair situation to throw your backup in, but I mean, I guess you might as well, right?
I mean, if you haven't moved the ball at all through the air, I mean, 3 for 14 is really bad.
I mean, it's not going to kill you, I guess.
So, well, Alex Hornibrook went on to throw a pick six, in that effectively sealed the game. Then just to show, sorry guys, but then just to show that they had really turtled, on the ensuing drive, 4th and 2 at their own 38, you're down 31-7. You punt the ball, which is just like that's just saying I've given up, and I think that sends the absolute wrong message to the team. And at that point, when you're down 31-7, especially if your starter's just thrown a pick six, that's when you put in the backup. I'm sorry, you have to do.
Oh yeah.
They punt for it. Then they keep the starters in against Michigan's twos, go down and score. Then Hornibrook pads his stats on that drive. He goes only 4 for 8, misses first 3 passes. Luckily to get a 4th down conversion to Jake Ferguson, tremendous freshman tight end, 36-yarder. He accrues 70 passing yards and a touchdown on that drive. But it was absolute garbage. Alex Hornibrook proved once again that that this team's upside has a ceiling against upper end talent. He will never be able to beat Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. I mean, and it's very frustrating as a Badger fan this was the first game that I felt like the defense really came to play. I was really impressed, especially by this kid, Reggie Pearson. He's a true freshman from the state of Michigan. He had to start the game, and he had not seen any college action yet to the day because 4-year starter, 3-year captain, Dakota Dixon, who is, alongside TJ Edwards and Ryan Connolly, sort of the heart and soul of that defense. He had to miss the game, his first missed start, I think, since he was a sophomore. And it was he stepped in and played admirably in his home state under the brightest of lights. And so I looked at and I contrast that with Alex Hornibrook, who just yet again shrunk in a big game, and I can't help but be disappointed. Josh, I know you watched it as well.
Yeah, and there were 2 possessions that I wanted to highlight, and they just left Dad and I in our hotel in Bloomington just dumbfounded, like jaws dropped. As Iowa State, which we'll talk about in a little bit, started to move closer and closer towards their ultimate upset, and Wisconsin was drifting farther and farther away from State in the game, we watched less and less of the second half. So both of these possessions are from the first half. I think they're just a microcosm of bad execution, bad game plan, and just not playing to your strengths. So with the game tied at 7, 1st and 10, Jonathan Taylor, a nice 9-yard rush. 2nd and 1, they do a play that Hornibrook runs for a loss of 2 yards, and he also fumbled on it.
That was Josh. That was a bad snap.
Yeah, but that gets to the lack of execution, lack of game plan, stuff like that. So then it's 3rd and 3. Well, agreed, in the NFL and for most teams, 3rd and 3 is a passing down. It shouldn't be for Wisconsin, and yet they ran it as a passing down. Hornibrook got sacked. So loss of 9 on that play. So that drive had bad play calling and bad execution and overall bad game plan. And then shortly later, Michigan's up 13-7. Wisconsin, 1st and 10. They get a 3-yard run.
Hold on. I just want to say, Josh, this drive you're talking about is coming off of a huge defensive stop, like a massive defensive stop.
Yep.
The drive before, Hornibrook threw his first interception of the game, which was returned to the Badger 15. So Michigan has got the ball at the Badger 15, and Wisconsin held them to 3 and out, a field goal. They got incomplete pass, stopped at the line of scrimmage for no gain on a run, another incomplete pass. Like, this was I thought this was going to be the singular turning point in the game.
Yeah, that's some great context. Thanks for that, Matt. Totally agreed. I was like, oh boy, Michigan got held to a field goal there.
This was the first. Honestly, in that moment, was the first time this entire season I have felt confident about Wisconsin's defense.
Yeah.
And that was saying something considering the guys that they were missing. They were out their starting defensive end, Isaiah Loudermilk. They're out Dakota Dixon, who I already mentioned. They've been really thin in the secondary. Their other starting safety is out because of a targeting call. Like, they are playing lights out defense in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. So the possession that I'm spotlighting, Wisconsin 1st and 10, Taylor runs for a gain of 3. Fine. That's Woody Hayes football. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You run it for 3 yards 4 times, you get a first down. 2nd and 7. Well, now they're panicking and they passed it, incomplete. And then it's 3rd and 7. Well, false start. So now it's 3rd and 12. That's not a very good down and distance for most teams. That's a horrendous down and distance for every aspect of the strength of this Wisconsin team. What happens? Incomplete pass. And, Coach mentioned Georgia banning the run game. I don't know why you don't run Taylor again on 2nd and 7. Maybe the drive plays out the same. Maybe he gets stuffed. There's not much of a gain. Then maybe you still get a false start. But I would much rather go down fighting with Jonathan Taylor getting touch after touch after touch. The other thing I noticed, so that, penalty on that drive, bad execution, 2 incomplete passes, bad game plan. The other thing I noticed as the game went on, Wisconsin had a little bit of luck with the jet sweep, and then they ran it twice in a row, and predictably the second time it got stuffed. I never saw them go back to it. But they reeled off a few big plays before abandoning it. Why not try the jet sweep again? Why not have a few passes off of the jet sweep? Why is every time someone going in motion, it's a handoff? Most defenses are going to key in on that, especially a defense as good as Michigan. So I was baffled by the game plan. I was baffled by some of the play calls. And then on top of it, a lack of execution.
Josh, I mean, this is a team that, when you take away the sacks and the botched snap from Hornibrook, this team averaged 7.5 yards a carry against Michigan. Mm-hmm. They were not having trouble running the ball. That is what just blows my mind. Because when you think Wisconsin, you think offensive line and run the football. Well, Coach, run the damn ball, Bobo, became run the damn ball, Rudolph.
Run that ball, Rudolph. Run that ball, Rudolph.
So, yeah.
And I think to tie a bow on the Jekyll and Hyde nature of the Alex Hornibrook experience, my dad's reaction to the game is, why the hell didn't he play like this in Kinnick?
Of course. When he
was carving us up. Those were some of the things I heard my dad say during the game.
Yeah. Well, saw this great stat. This is before the last touchdown of the game that Hornibrook threw in garbage time. Against Michigan and Ohio State, Alex Hornibrook has 3 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Against all other competition, he has 38 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. That's a ratio of 1 to 3 good teams and better than 2 to 1 against everyone else. So, it is clear that the Badgers have a ceiling with Alex Hornibrook at the quarterback. And, Coach, this is where I want to bring you back in because Georgia, you felt like you didn't see enough of Justin Fields.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you got a guy sitting over there that you apparently want to give a chance to, and he's extremely talented. I mean, if Jake Fromm is struggling and they're in a supposed quarterback competition, well, let's bring the competition aspect of it and see if Justin Fields can give us a spark. And I don't know why you've got a 5-star kid who got the highest rating and accolades at the Elite 11 that you could possibly get. Obviously, he can throw the ball. Just see what the kid can do. I don't see what the fear is in putting him in. I mean, at that point, it wasn't going to get any worse. So why not take a chance on the kid? I mean, arguably, he's the best quarterback prospect in last year's signing class. I don't think
that was arguable. I thought he was pretty much the consensus. Well, I guess he's probably the number 2 kid behind Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, well, it depends on who you were looking at, because Trevor Lawrence, if you're looking at rivals, Trevor Lawrence was number 1. If you were looking at 24/7 or ESPN, Justin Fields was number 1. And, I mean, there was a razor's edge of difference between the two.
Whatever. It's
well,
one.
I mean, it gets worse than that, Coach. I don't know if you saw this across the wire, but after no playing time and just being absolutely insulted, Justin Fields already announced his transfer to Iowa. So,
oh well, damn. I mean, but watch out, Stanley. He's going to play for a real passing team there, Wisconsin. Shoot, I could play better than Hornibrook did last night or 2 nights ago. But hey, look on the bright side. At least we're not Kentucky Christian fans, because they were on the wrong end of a 92-12 beatdown.
That is
that would be Bethel University.
Well, now I just want to know, how do you score 12 points in that game? I don't care about the 92. The 12, that's an interesting number. 2 missed point-afters, or
I guess if
all
you're down
field goals, or
I guess if you're down whatever to whatever, I guess you just abandon PATs at that point.
I have a feeling, based on the other team's success, it didn't happen, but a part of me really hopes it was 6 safeties.
It probably might have happened.
Yeah,
that could have happened.
They couldn't get the snap with the punter to go well, and just went over his head every time and out of the end zone.
Well, there's your problem.
Or they just were on the 1 6 times and got sacked. Who knows? Bethel scored fairly quickly, I should say. They're only number 8 in the NAIA football coaches top 25, if you're wondering. And that, folks, is your NAIA update.
All right. Well, with that, guys, let's hit a pop quiz before we go to our deep roots.
Quiz.
Josh, you were on the road this weekend in Memorial Stadium. Do you know how many people that holds?
Well, I know it's not particularly large, and it's got 1 end zone with just very few seats. I would say it's in the neighborhood of 55.
That's a very good guess. It is about 52.6.
Yeah.
So, however, gentlemen, your job today is to name the 20 college football stadiums that hold at least 80,000 fans.
Done. Coach, I think between our expertise, we should be able to go 20 for 20 with neither of us getting this right.
I believe you guys can do this. These are obviously, this obviously does not include places like Jerry World, which hosts college football games, but is not actually a college football stadium.
Obviously.
So, okay.
Yeah.
With that, Coach, it is off to you first.
So can I consolidate my answer and say half the SEC?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll start with Alabama.
That is correct. Bryant-Denny Stadium. Do you have a rough estimate of how many it holds?
With the new renovations, I think it's up to 101, right?
It's 101.8. That is a very good guess. All right, Josh, you're up.
Big House, Michigan Stadium.
Michigan, that is correct. Number 1, 107,601 is the listed capacity.
Yeah, but when they play Ohio State, they find a way to get about 110 in there,
which is absolutely absurd. Surprisingly, not that loud.
It's gotten better. It's gotten better. It got a bum rap for a long time because it's a big bowl. So it's kind of an open air stadium, but they added a huge attachment of luxury boxes and stuff. I don't love the paint job. It's like a very dark blue. So it's kind of this ominous looking thing. But that does a better job of trapping the sound.
All right. Coach.
The place where Georgia just left their dignity, Death Valley. Baton Rouge. Tiger Stadium.
That is correct. Tiger Stadium, the sixth largest stadium in the country.
They're sitting at 98, I think.
102.3.
Oh.
Gosh.
Samsonite. I was way off.
Well, I feel like they're in a private arms race and they keep alternating. And I believe with their most recent work done, Beaver Stadium edges out my third guess.
Yep, that is correct. Beaver Stadium, home of the Penn State Nittany Lions, number 2 in the country currently, 106,572 listed capacity. Coach.
Kyle Field.
You know it.
Power Station.
Largest stadium outside of the Big Ten.
104?
Yeah, 102.7.
That was a little closer.
So the team that had edged out in the last of the 3 before Kyle Field, Ohio Stadium, the shoe.
Mm-hmm. Horseshoe holds 104.9. Deceptively large.
Highest upper deck I've ever been in. It's just straight up in the air.
Is it like on the edge of being like terrifying?
A little bit, yeah.
All right, Coach.
The giant erector set known as Tennessee.
Does anyone else call that, or is that just a coach special nickname?
That's a coach. It looks like an erector set.
It really does. It really does. That is correct. Neyland Stadium, 102.4.
All right. I believe it's the largest stadium in the Pac-12, but my next guess was going to be one of the most memorable stadiums I've been to, the Coliseum.
Coliseum is the largest in the Pac-12. That's actually the largest stadium I've ever been to. Josh, you and I went together for, I believe, a USC-Oregon State game.
Yeah, a day game, too. They're much more fun at night.
It would have been. Still fun, though. 93.6 for the Coliseum.
I was there a second time with our good friend Kramer, who's trying to see every football stadium. That was actually the USC upset of Stanford on a last-second field goal. I believe that was Ed Ogeron's interim spin.
Coach O just out-coaching him everywhere he goes right now.
Hi, Coach O here.
All right. Coach.
Well, Sanford Stadium, the home of the Bulldogs.
You know it.
95.
Ooh, not quite. 92.7.
It can hold 95.
I'm sure it can hold 95. Listed capacity 92.7. Josh.
Unofficial capacity 95.
Staying in the Pac-12, the historic, the granddaddy of them all, or the Rose Bowl.
You know it. 91,000.
And for UCLA games, they get about 36.
They wish they got 36.
Hey, they beat Cal.
Closer to about 28.
They beat Cal.
They beat Cal in a decidedly strong fashion. So, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, best game of his young career. I think he's finally starting to get things flowing. Chip Kelly starting to make things look good. Scott Frosty, on their hand, still struggling. Anyway, Coach, you're up.
Jordan-Hare, 86,000.
Jordan-Hare, 87 actually, 87.5. But yes, that is correct.
That's a really that's a stadium that has 87 but feels like 107.
Mm-hmm.
It's so loud. It's a great atmosphere.
Gosh.
All right. Well, at the beginning of the game, it only has about 70,000 people in there because the students are lazy. But technically, Camp Randall is over 80.
Camp Randall, 80,321.
Ooh. All right. The Swamp.
The Swamp. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, 88,548.
All right. Well, I'm going to get my pads on. I'm then going to board a bus. I'm then going to ride that bus around the stadium so I can touch a rock and run down a hill at the other Death Valley Clemson Memorial Stadium.
Clemson 81-5.
I thought you were about to hit him with a strike. I was like, wait, oh.
No. If you want to be technical, Frank Howard Field at Clemson Memorial Stadium.
I don't recognize.
By the way, both of you guys are 7 for 7. There are 6 left.
Okay, well, I'm about to go 8 for 8 here. If you want to go to a stadium
Confidence.
that has over 80,000, and you want to see a really cool tradition of an Indian throwing a flaming spear into midfield, travel down to Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee.
Ooh.
Coach, I am sorry. You get your first strike of the day. So-called 79,000.
Ooh. Oh, it was 80.
Nope. I'm sorry, Coach. But according to the Wikipedia page,
Well, there you go.
now, Coach,
I'm protesting this.
Now, Coach, I will say that the
protesting
record attendance at the Doak exceeds 80,000, but their current listed capacity is 79,560.
Let's see here.
Fascinating.
Let's see. I'm protesting that one.
Okay, we will have one under protest. Coach, I do want to say that was the first out. That was the closest to 80 without being over 80 that you could be.
Should I be a good co-host and deliberately take a strike just to
No.
that would say BB&T Stadium in Winston-Salem with Wake Forest?
No.
So I had next on my list, I believe it's the last in the Big Ten, and that is Nebraska's stadium.
Memorial Stadium, 89,959.
And unless my tabulations are wrong.
500 people away.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Florida State's official website.
Yeah.
But yeah, unless my tabulations are wrong, that's the last of the Big Ten.
That is, I will say that Nebraska is correct.
Yeah.
How'd they get 82,000 in there in 2014? They got as high as 84 in there. Makes no sense.
I think that's where you just do standing room only.
I guess. 51,000. What the hell? Anyway, wow. Okay.
Guys, we have
Dadgum.
4
left.
4 stadiums left.
Well, if you want to see a really large bovine creature, you can travel to Darrell Royal Memorial Stadium and take on the DKR.
Nice.
Darrell K. Royal, Texas Memorial Stadium, 100,119.
Nice. I believe that leaves just one Big 12 program left, which would be Oklahoma.
You know the full name?
Wait, it's not Kansas? You can fit 79,000
when they put the track in, it went under 80,000.
Yeah.
It went down to about 76.
I thought it would boost it to like 85.
The full name of Oklahoma Stadium, it's named after some family. It's like, I can't remember the name of the family.
It's the Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium.
What a bunch of... Never mind.
86,112. Coach.
Now, that's just a horseshoe, right? I don't think they have a fourth side.
That is correct.
Do they have like a big athletic facility there blocking it, or why would they not close that in?
No, I don't know why. They've made some renovations lately, though, haven't they? It's not really much of a horseshoe anymore, is it?
The latest renovations took place, just 2 years ago. And I believe that they enclosed at least some of it, but I'm not entirely sure. So, Coach, you are up.
All right. I'm going to say that if you want to enjoy some college football with 80,000 of your closest friends, do not go to Vanderbilt.
No.
But instead, opt to go to Williams-Brice Stadium.
Ooh.
South Kakalaki.
South Kakalaki.
80,250. The lowest on this list. Josh, there is one left.
There's one left.
You guys are tied at 9.
Ooh. Boy.
Because I miscounted. It was actually 19, not 20 stadiums. The 19.
Oh.
One of the stadiums was only one of the stadiums was the Cotton Bowl that I'd counted, but that's not technically a school stadium.
Oh.
Cotton Bowl, by the way,
Let's
holds
see.
98,100.
Well,
I'm actually very surprised that you guys have not gotten this one yet.
I'm torn between two stadiums.
Well, you're gonna have to choose one, Josh.
Boy. I am gonna go with Touchdown Jesus.
Oh, that would be a good guess, but not quite. After the Doak, second.
No!
77,622.
My gut let me down.
Coach?
Ooh, okay. I'm going to stay in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. They almost got a big win this weekend. But they play in Reynolds Stadium in the great state of Arkansas. 80,000.
Almost 76,212 for the Razorbacks. Guys,
Well,
I want to interject. This is a really obvious one.
well, I had two that I was torn between. I went with Notre Dame because it's a complete bowl, and the Swamp has weird cutouts on the side that say "Welcome to the Swamp."
You can't say the Swamp because I already did.
Yeah, Coach already said the Swamp.
Coach already said this.
I done already said that Swamp.
I noticed that.
Then I must have missed something because, gentlemen, I don't believe anyone has said Alabama.
I did say
That was
Alabama.
the first stadium Coach said.
That was literally my first
It really?
guess.
Okay. For some reason I crossed everyone else off my list. I had not crossed Alabama off the list because I guess
Well, that makes it harder to guess.
Oh my God. Well then.
That is.
That's too much.
So I think Coach and I both get A+.
You guys get A+, and I get an F for the day. Because your teacher, your
We
professor.
get automatic hundreds because our teacher messed up the test.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I did not catch hearing Coach say the Swamp, and
I did not catch Coach saying.
and on my list I was down to Notre Dame Stadium and the Swamp, and I went with Notre Dame Stadium.
So you guys actually, you know what you guys did? You guys guessed the top 21 without fail. So you guys.
Wait, didn't we get the top 22? Didn't you say Notre Dame was just after?
So it was because remember it was actually 19, not 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys named every single one. You guys both absolutely get A+ for the day. I am thoroughly impressed with your stadium knowledge, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The next closest would have been Spartan Stadium.
Oh yeah, they've done some renovation. I think that's up to close to 76, maybe.
It's at
Where does Vaught Hemingway?
75,000.
Where does Vaught Hemingway stand?
Vaught Hemingway.
Is that over 70 at all? Just curious.
No, 64 and change.
Yeah, I thought it was. I didn't think it was above 70.
So
Yeah. And
Kentucky's 62, right?
Kentucky is 61 at the big shopping bag.
It's the big shopping bag.
I mean, if a shopping bag can hold 61,000 people, I'm very impressed by it. That is definitely what you consider a reusable bag.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Well,
and how small is the smallest stadium out of
the
curiosity?
smallest Division I college football
Has to be either Navy or Army, right? West Point?
No, actually.
San Jose State.
It is. Hold on.
I'm gonna guess a Sun Belt school.
Georgia Tech was down there. They're middle of the pack now, but it used to be Georgia Tech.
No, it is a Conference USA school.
Oh.
I'm gonna say
Charlotte?
It's actually I was very surprised to see this.
MTSU. Their stadium was tiny.
Louisiana Tech.
The good folks of Ruston.
Yeah, 28,562 at Joe Eilert Stadium.
I mean, you got to get more people to see what's one of the best uniforms in all of football. Come on.
And a great offense.
Step it up.
Very underutilized stadium right there.
That's right.
Ooh, I just looked at some pictures of it. It looks beautiful.
It does look in historic downtown Ruston.
I mean, shoot, sign me up. I'll go to a game there.
I think we should do a live show there.
That would be amazing.
Louisiana Tech Athletics, if you want to sponsor us, we will do a live broadcast.
The best thing about going there, if we ever were to make that happen, is I can finally solve my big question. Does Skip Holtz talk like his dad does?
I would love to know.
Ooh, that would be. Hey, in weird headlines, I just saw this on my Twitter feed. Former West Virginia running back Justin Crawford was arrested for incest.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Incest.
It's very sad.
What?
Yep.
That is, I'm dumbfounded.
And enticing a child. What?
Jeez.
What?
Yeah, it's a very sad situation.
Yikes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
It's bad.
Oh, that's awful.
Really, really bad. And
That's awful.
there's not much else to say because that's just
He was
terrible.
married with 2 children, worked at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's terrible.
Well, there's no good transition, but we need to keep moving on to the other upsets that happened this weekend. The first of those I want to talk about took place in Happy Valley, where Penn State lost to what had previously been a very underwhelming Michigan State team, 21-17. The Nittany Lions managed to put up over 200 rushing yards on what had been, coming into the weekend, the number one rush defense in the country. Yet they couldn't get more than 17 points, Josh. So what happened here?
I mean, that's the weirdness of our sport sometimes. And they averaged over 6 yards a carry, and Sanders was incredible, 162 yards. He only had 17 carries, though. And we talked about Georgia not running enough. We talked about Wisconsin not running enough. Penn State has to feel like a team that didn't run it enough either. And, they just had drives that ended with a field goal or drives that ended with a turnover. They had a drive that, was promising. It looked like, they got 17 yards. They're moving the ball a little bit when it's 14-14. They had that fumble. They had another promising drive, ended with a missed field goal. So they were moving the ball, but just between the field goal and the missed field goal, empty or not true touchdown, those are the important drives you need. You need to have the true score, the 7-point score. That's the object of our sport. Field goals are nice. Field goals can be decisive, but if you're trading off touchdowns for field goals, that's a recipe for disaster. Another problem they had, and I agree with it, a lot of fans were complaining about this on the Penn State message boards, but towards the end of the game, seemed like Brian Lewerke's looking one direction. That's Felton Davis III.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he not bracketed? Why is he not double teamed? Why is he not, getting hit at the line, getting a chip, and then the safety having coverage over the top? Why is it single coverage that's putting your players in a bad position? Michigan State took advantage of that They called that play specifically for Davis.
Up.
Yeah. They went Davis's way for that game-winning touchdown. Why? Just why? And
it's not like Lewerke had been playing all that great of a game. I mean, he was under 50% for the day. He only averaged 5 yards an attempt. That is not very good.
No, and
but that's all they needed.
Just this is what D'Antonio does. He pulls rabbits out of his hat. He stung Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan more times than we can count. And he's the type of coach that you just got to beat that team up early. And, to return to a well that I like to and talk about Iowa football, Iowa's gotten a few wins against him, and the recipe's been the same almost every time, which is Iowa explodes in the first half. And they go into halftime with a big lead. And Michigan State's just not equipped to come back. And Penn State just hasn't done that the last few years against this team. You're up 14-7 at half. That's right where D'Antonio wants you. That's right where the sport and program wants you. Because they know they make adjustments in that halftime. And they, I'm sure, looked at things and went, oh, whoa, Fulton Davis. He's just getting single coverage. Okay, we know our offense for the second half. And that's what we did.
And you know what? My biggest takeaway from this for Michigan State is they never panicked. They just said, we're going to stick to our game plan. We're going to get the ball into Felton Davis's hands. 8 catches, 100 yards. They did a great job of doing that. Lewerke was not, I think I said that right. He was not on point. He was just good enough to get the win. But they still were missing L.J. Scott and Cody White. And they still pulled this off, but they had possession time advantage as well. So Penn State's defense, they looked tired, man, and it showed on that last drive. They had 2 guys that stepped in front of Lewerke's passes, and both times dropped, and they had a chance to just put a kibosh on that final drive. And when you have plays like that in your grasp, you have to elite teams, as James, to pull a quote from James Franklin, if you're going to evolve from a good team or a great team to an elite team, you make those interceptions when they hit you in the hands. You don't drop them. All right? You find a way to get the guy that's been gashing you, 8 catches, 100 yards, double cover him, do something, get after the quarterback who's shown that he's not been as efficient as he normally is. He's a little bit off, but yet he doesn't complete all the passes, but he completes the big ones, and that's all that matters. Why not get some pressure on him? Force him into some bad throws. Force him to take a sack. Force him. He might cough the ball up when you sack him. You don't know, but they've got to figure out a way. I think Penn State, honestly, they coached themselves out of this game. And they didn't make all the adjustments that they needed to make. And they couldn't get things going on offense. And you have a guy like Trace McSorley, you should be able to, but they couldn't. They couldn't adjust. They couldn't do what it took to win the game. And Michigan State didn't play overly well on offense, but when you have a guy go 8 catches for 100 yards, to me, that just, I don't know, Michigan State they're better coached than Penn State at this point.
Yeah, it was. I was quite shocked because Michigan State so far this season had looked less than great, especially considering that I picked them to do very well this year. I was, quite disappointed in them, but they really turned it around. Another team that looked surprisingly good.
Well, you know what's going to be scary?
What's that?
Next weekend, Michigan State, Michigan.
Yeah, that's going to be a very, very interesting one.
That game still produced my favorite soundbite,
which is.
Wait, no. The New York Jets provided mine.
Maybe about 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago.
You play to win the game.
No, Coach, this one's better. A long time ago, many moons ago, midweek press conference.
Oh, I know where this is.
Midweek press conference, they asked a Michigan State kid about the rivalry, and his response was, "Oh man, it's huge. It's like the Civil War." Follow-up question: which side are you? Players answer, "Oh man, whichever side won."
I thought you were going with John L. Smith.
Oh, John L. Smith. Kids are playing their asses off. The coaches keep screwing up the game.
That's where I thought you were going with this.
I don't know if that was against Michigan.
I didn't know either, but all I know it is John L. Smith. So
John L. Smith messed up a lot of games.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time. So anyway, let's move on, though, to the ACC, where we had a shocker in Charlottesville. The Hoos won an ugly one over Miami, 16-13. Both teams threw 3 picks. Neither team was really able to get in a groove offensively. So, Coach, how did Virginia manage to pull this one out of their butt?
I mean,
seriously, that's what they did. They put on Miami had like 150 more offensive yards than Virginia. I for the life of me do not understand this game. So Coach, enlighten me.
That was just funny. I don't know. I mean, they literally just pulled it out of their rear end. They got lucky at the most fortunate times. Just a lot of fortunate stuff, man. Team stats, you look at the team stats, they had 2 more first downs. The U was 0-2 on third down. The total yards was almost 100, 339 to 231.
I also don't understand why the U pulled in Josie Perry after 4 series. Yeah, he threw 2 interceptions, but you kind of knew this coming in. And if you're gonna replace Malik Rozier, you got to show some confidence in the kid that you've replaced him in, because they just went back to Malik Rozier the freaking second quarter. Josh, what on earth? This is another questionable coaching decision. But I'm throwing it to you, Josh. What on earth was Mark Richt thinking?
Well, I think he was probably thinking that Rozier has had a reliable career, I guess, maybe you could say. Or maybe not reliable.
I would say reliably average.
Yeah, he's had a career where he's won more games than he's lost. He can do a little bit with his feet. He can do a little bit more with his arm.
But he's proven to be average as grits.
Yeah.
And when your average is grits on the road against a Bronco Mendenhall type coach team, that's the kind of games that they win. If you're sitting there producing yards between the 20s, turning it over 3 times, probably untimely penalties that killed drives. They had 8 of them for 71 yards. Probably their turnover, I would guess, because I didn't watch the whole game. I just saw snippets of it. But if I had to guess, it was probably Miami's turnovers were probably more devastating than Virginia's.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a really weird game. But the defense stood on their head, and Mark Richt is now left scratching his head, going, "Well, dadgum, what just happened?"
Well, I think we need to talk more about this Virginia defense, though. This is a unit where they don't necessarily do anything at an elite level, but they do everything at a really, really good level. And when you add all those pieces together, it becomes a formidable defense. Juan Thornhill, a really reliable safety. He had 2 picks. He also got in on a bunch of tackles. Another good name.
Josh, speaking of defense, I don't mean to cut you off, but the play of the game, I did see this, was Bryce Hall hawking Homer. Hawking his Travis Homer's 70-yard run would have scored, would have put them in, in winning would have had them winning probably.
Yeah.
He said, here's his quote about it. Well, Mendenhall's quote was, that might have been my favorite play. But Hall said, quote, I saw him break free. I literally just went into another zone. Quote, I put my head down, pumped my arms, pumped my legs, and I just took off on a mission to try and get him. End quote. Yeah, he was very successful. He hawked him.
Yeah. Another name to throw out there, Zane Zandier, the linebacker. He continues his hot streak of play. He added on 9 tackles against this Hurricane team. And like I said, they don't necessarily do anything at like an eye-popping elite level, but they're just really consistent with things. So to kind of put some numbers to that, passing yards per game, they're allowing 197. That's 34th in the country. Again, that's solid, but not elite. Yards per game overall defense, 25th. You look at the points per game, 25th. So they're not, they're
good,
not,
but they're not great.
Yeah, but when you add being good, not great at every statistical measurement of defense, you're going to become a reliable outfit. And then the other thing, you got to get some points somewhere. Virginia's still a work in progress offensively. Not a surprise. We talked about way back months ago all the offensive players they graduated. So they're still a work in progress, but one place where they're not, Brian Delaney, their kicker, 3 for 3 on field goals. They needed every one of those points that he gave them. The sophomores having a really nice season.
All right. Well, next I want to talk about the crazy game that took place at Autzen Stadium. Oregon wins an absolute wild one in overtime, 30-27. This is thanks to a missed field goal at the end of regulation by Washington kicker Peyton Henry, 37-yarder, very makeable, and just completely shanked it. So, Coach, what was your biggest takeaway from this game?
Well, it was everything that we thought it was going to be. I thought C.J. Verdell had a tremendous play in overtime for that walk-off touchdown. I mean, you feel bad for Washington's kicker, but I mean that's just it. That's just kind of what you get. But the Ducks, man, they continued to impress me. And this is after Herbert didn't even have his best day. This was he was like Lorky against Penn State. He wasn't his best, but he was just good enough. And Dylan Mitchell continues to impress me. They have a lot of explosiveness over there. And I think that, if the Pac-12 is going to have a chance of getting a team in the playoff right now, the way Oregon is playing, they look to be the best option. They look to be the best chance. And so,
they really might be. I mean, this Oregon team is not a joke.
No, and they were missing 2 starting O-linemen too. Absolutely. And they rushed for 177 yards on 27 carries. I mean, as a team, that is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, they're fun to watch, man. They really are. And those uniforms are extremely loud. Extremely loud.
That they are.
And the numbers are more obnoxious this year than they've ever been. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they're kind of back to being explosive. And I'm happy for that, because that's what that conference needs. That conference needs Oregon to be good, because they are Nike. That's just kind of what their identity was for a long time under Chip Kelly. And they've finally gotten that back. And, it kind of makes everybody excited to watch Pac-12 football. I mean, I love Stanford, don't get me wrong. And don't get me wrong when I say this, but I don't really many people are dialing into Pac-12 after dark to see Stanford. They want to see Oregon. They want to see them go.
They want to see Oregon and USC.
Yeah, they want to see Oregon be explosive, and they want to see USC feel basically an NFL roster, which is what traditional well, I don't want to say traditional Pac-12, but like recent traditional Pac-12 had been, from like 2000 on, the Pac-12 was Oregon explosive, USC extremely loaded with talent. And then let's just see let's just root for these potential upsets along the way and just watch these teams work. And Oregon's whole narrative of the bargain, USC did its part this week, but they haven't overall. So Autzen Stadium is that's a tough place to play. They're not quite at 80,000 people yet. I can imagine if they were. So yeah.
Yeah, Josh, as an Oregon fan, you've got to be pretty heartened by what you saw.
Yeah, but we've been talking a lot about Oregon. We've been rightfully so blowing a lot of smoke up Oregon's behind. Let's talk about the real reason. Washington, just major flaws in, believe it or not, pains me to say it because I love him, but Chris Peterson, man, what are you doing? You got a bunch of questionable calls. Also, Washington defense melting down. So let's start with the Washington defense melting down. In that overtime, 3rd and 1, Oregon gets called for holding. 3rd and 11, that's got to be game over in college overtime. What do? They gave up a 17-yard pass play. They then get a 3rd and 6. They get a little bit of another opportunity to try and win the game, get another 3rd down. Defense gives up the touchdown. Can't do that. That 3rd and 11, that's got to be game over. That's got to be you defend the pass, maybe even get an interception, and then 4th down, you seal the deal. So meltdown on defense right there. Then on the field goal that they shanked, there was some Andy Reid level of time management.
Oh, gosh.
In this one. So Washington has.
I can understand why Andy Reid has time management issues because his advice is written in 3-point font on 3 poster boards that are paper clipped together. So he has trouble finding his timeout scenario box. So, but I digress.
So Washington, they're driving. There's over a minute left. They got a 3rd and 6. They get 3 yards. Okay. Oregon calls a timeout. Washington does a smart thing. They go for it on 4th down. They pick it up. So now they got a 1st down at the 29. They run for an 8-yard gain, get it to the Oregon 21. Rather than keep the pressure on the Ducks, they wind the clock, let it run, take a timeout. Then 2nd and 2 from the Oregon 21, a 1-yard run. They let the clock run all the way down to 3 seconds and then take your timeout. Why, after that 1st and 10, where you run it for 8 yards to get to the 21, why don't you run a play and pick up another 1st down? Why are you playing for a field goal? Just get 7 points and win the game. After getting down to the 21, Peterson decided, you know what, we're going to win this 27-24. Wrong mentality with a college kicker. They just are not fully reliable.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Horrendous. And then, that's not even the only possession that I can rag on Washington about. Here's another one. They have a nice drive going. They get to 3rd and 3 at the Oregon 28. Then they gain a couple yards with Gaskin. So it's a 4th and 1 from the 26. Well, that's probably in their field goal kicker's range if they were willing to kick a 21-yarder to try and win the game. It's 24-24 in the 4th quarter. been a really nip and tuck defensive game in the second half. And in fact, in the fourth quarter, no team would even score a point. Coach mentioned, why do they go to the fake field goal for the Georgia game? And Coach, you said on the road, take some points. Why are you not taking points, Chris Peterson? Why are you running with Jake Browning, who lost 3 yards? Empty possession. So to recap, on that drive with 10 minutes to go in the game, take some points. On that drive at the end of the game, try and score a touchdown. And finally, defensive meltdown. This is, hats off to Oregon. This is some karma for the universe. The football gods taking away that Stanford game. But Washington shot themselves in the foot at least 3 major times.
Yeah, Washington definitely not in their finest form in this one. Okay, we need to move on. Iowa State absolutely rocked West Virginia from the get-go in their 30-14 victory. The Mountaineers were held to 9 first downs and 152 total yards. Josh, I know you're ready to say I told you so about Dana Holgorsen.
I could go that way, but I would rather say I told you so about Iowa State. I thought they were way, way better than their record ever indicated. This was a complete performance.
Josh, I have something to say.
Well, I was going to say, don't ignore the fact that West Virginia had a blocked field goal, scoop and score. They only scored 7 points offensively. But what were you going to say, Matt?
Brock Purdy for Heisman.
That's a little early. He did have he had a nice passing day. Let's not also
2 wins, 2 300-plus yard, 3 touchdown performances, or 250-plus yard, 3 touchdown performances.
Well, I mean, let's not sleep on the fact that he had a really, really good backfield mate, David Montgomery.
True.
Had 189 yards on the ground. Look, Iowa State's a really good team. They have a really underrated home environment.
Those blackout uniforms were awesome.
Yeah, the only thing I wish they just had a touch of red and yellow on them. But to tie a bow on this game, because we're running long, I just hope for Iowa State's sake, I hope Matt Campbell realizes, hey, you know what? I'm making a pretty good paycheck. I'm in a power conference. I can go about a 520 win percentage over the course of my career, be the all-time winningest coach at this program. They'll build statues after me. I will be able to go into any eatery in Ames and never pay a bill again. Matt, you're in a really good position. Don't chase whatever jobs open up this offseason, because they'll either be a lateral move or you're just going to turn into Willie Taggart, where you're just counting down to the day till you get fired.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I really do hope that Iowa State and Matt Campbell are able to work out an agreement that works for both of them, because this seems like a really good fit at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Iowa State, I don't know your AD's name, but understand
Pollard, I believe.
Yeah, whatever your name is, money talks. Just understand that. Money talks. And in the words of Teddy KGB, pay that man his money.
I didn't know we were going rounders here.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think he'll chase jobs. I think there might be a few programs that might chase him. But I don't think he's going to be actively searching, if I'm being honest.
Well, just to give Coach, just to give some numbers, Jamie Pollard, he's one of the best ADs probably in the country. He raises tons and tons and tons of money for Iowa State. Back before he made the jump, weirdly, to the NBA, Fred Hoiberg was making $2.6 million per year, and that's basketball, where the salaries are a little bit less. Matt Campbell, back in November of last year, so just after kind of wrapping up the season, making the bowl, he was hiked up to $3.5 million annually. So really, for him to leave, it would I just don't get it. He's making so much money. He's in a power conference. Yeah, if Nick Saban randomly retired and Alabama calls you, okay, maybe you make that move. But I don't see, say, not that it's going to happen, but like Iowa State over Nebraska.
Or Michigan State.
Yeah. Rutgers would make no sense. Maryland would make no sense. Just, yeah, stay where you are, Matt.
And I don't think he'll. I think he's got to. He could have done it this year, and nobody would have blamed him.
Well, we do hope that you stick around. We love what the Cyclone program has become. Finally, gentlemen, what ended up being an absolutely phenomenal game. UCF barely beats Memphis in Memphis 31-30. Kind of a heartbreaker for the Tigers, who scored all 30 of their points in the first half. But in the second half, UCF defense really turned it on. Mackenzie Milton turned it up, Josh. Your Knights, are they going to stick at number 4 in your poll this week?
Yeah, they will. And honestly, this is a super impressive win. This is Memphis, who was in the title game a year ago. Mm-hmm. They still have a pretty talented team, but things have not gone their way.
And they still have a very good coach.
Yes. And so they were the caged animal. They were the cornered animal that has a big bite. Memphis had the perfect game plan, attack, that struggling Central Florida rush defense. They built a huge lead, which you need to have. They had the weather in their favor, a driving monsoon. I don't think anyone would have faulted Central Florida for saying, hey, you know what? This just isn't our day. And it happens sometimes. And what happens? Central Florida makes all the adjustment at halftime, shuts out Memphis in the second half, finds a way to squeeze 14 points out of a day where it is a monsoon. If it wasn't for bad luck, Central Florida wouldn't have had any luck. And they do what great teams do. They find a way to win. And you know what? Everyone's talking about, Ohio State had kind of a sleepy win over Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. Look, Central Florida's earned that respect. You just can't have 12 regular season games, conference title game, bowl game, or if you're in the playoffs, you can't have 14 to 15 A-plus performances. You're going to have some clunker. What separates great teams from good teams and the elite from the great is those clunkers are still W's. And this was a clunker combined with probably the worst weather of the weekend, and the Knights found a way to make it happen. That's amazing. That's what an elite team does.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Coach, if you're Memphis, you've got to be just, kicking yourself for not being able to do anything in the second half.
Exactly. You had them on the ropes, you let them off the ropes, and they stung you.
And and you've got one of the best tailbacks in the country.
Yeah.
One of the most versatile players in the country. I think probably a lot of
people. He had 199 on 31 carries. It's not like, he did his part.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He did it all early, and Central Florida shut him down. So, it was bad clock mismanagement too at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. Just Memphis just shooting themselves in the foot. Honestly, they had the game won. They had UCF right where they wanted them. They had them on the ropes. They were pounding on them. They were looking for that knockout blow. Knockout blow actually was not delivered. It was received, and then they hit the canvas.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
We can say they played a heck of a game up until the end.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here tonight, guys, on a little bit longer episode of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. Josh, any final words?
That's okay.
Well, we somehow did it again. We buried the lead, and tragedy in Fayetteville. The win was there. Ole Miss was on the ropes. Arkansas had a second half lead. They were up 33-24, and they gave up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to lose. And you know what? It's easy to feel sorry for them, but it's also sometimes gotta not feel so sorry for them, because 611 yards allowed to Ole Miss, really? Like, you're just asking to get the game snatched from you. You're just asking to be Charlie Brown trying to kick against Lucy. When you give up, yet again, let me restate that, 611 yards. That is a ton.
That is.
Are they trying to be UConn?
Yeah, that's a good day for UConn, to be fair.
FYI, Randy Edsall went off on the American Athletic Conference not getting the respect it deserves, and saying that Central Florida should be ranked higher. Randy, yeah, you're not helping their cause.
No, you're really not.
You're highlighting how bad your team is.
All right, Coach, any final words from you this evening?
Yeah, we hope you had a Jeremy Pruitt, Tennessee Vols type weekend, picking up their first conference win in 10 tries.
Yeah, good for them. Beating Auburn, who is very quickly descending into the depths of something.
Let's call it what it is. It is a tailspin of epic proportions, and Gus Malzahn may not survive this tailspin.
His buyout's huge. I don't know how you fire a second straight coach who's won a national title. The good thing is, of course, for Auburn, their schedule opens up nicely. They got some easier games coming up. I can't remember their schedule, but I think they avoid Alabama in a crossover game. So it should be smooth sailing for Auburn here on out. I think they right the ship and get to about 8-9 wins.
Yeah. God, no worries about the buyout, because they have a guy that owns a casino as one of their boosters, and I'm sure he wouldn't have any trouble.
Auburn still has games left against Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama.
Ooh.
Next week they get this coming week, I should say, they will be at Ole Miss as well.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
at Ole Mississippi. Okay.
Nice. Really, honestly, the last thing I got to say, just because it didn't make such an action-packed show, shout out to Northwestern for that gritty comeback. Yet more hard luck for the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Epic comeback starts right now.
Oof.
Yeah.
And with that, I resign from the podcast.
Okay. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton in Georgia, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
Also in Georgia right now.
Also in Noonan, Georgia without me. This is the professor, lonely in Nashville, saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Don't try any more fake field goals.
Unless you're Kirk Ferentz.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.